Welcome to the Empowered Aging Podcast. Your host is Michelle, a physical therapist passionate about helping older adults stay active, mobile, and independent. Let's dive into today's topic.
I was in high school when my grandmother passed away from cancer. But I had enough time with her to be able to remember her as a very vibrant woman, very wise, very intelligent. She was a professor of physics and tutored high school and college kids, very well respected. But more than anything, it was her vivacious spirit, always living her best life. Those are the things that I remember. Um, she would laugh, never took herself too seriously, and yet was a very serious and faithful woman. Um, but recently, my mother passed on to me some of my grandmother's final thoughts and things that she told her about when she was in the hospital during her last few days. She was quiet and reflective, and something that she shared with my mother at that time, she told her, young people are always beautiful, but older people must make an effort to be beautiful. And and I know that might actually sound like, I don't know, kind of harsh, really, not a very nice thing to say, but that's not what she meant. She wasn't talking about beauty in the sense of a model, in that traditional sense, but she was talking about how we need to care for ourselves, how we need to carry ourselves, because how we do that, how we show up in life, makes a big difference in how we feel about ourselves and also how other people interpret us, take us. She believed that as we get older, we do need to be more intentional, not because we're losing something, but because we're choosing to stay engaged in our lives. Younger people, it just kind of happens more naturally. They're just naturally more vivacious. They're outgoing, usually. The beauty comes more naturally, whether they think so or not. But as we age and our bubble kind of gets smaller, maybe you're not moving as well, so you don't interact with people as much, and so that bubble gets smaller. And then we kind of change how we present ourselves. But then that becomes a cycle, and that changes maybe how we feel about ourselves. So my grandmother went on to kind of be a little more specific about what that effort looks like in everyday life for an older person. Um, she said that, you need to stay clean. You need to take a shower every day. And I know that sounds like pretty basic, but having worked in the geriatric population for now over 30 years, that's not necessarily something that all older people do. Um, Sometimes we skip a shower. I didn't do much today. What a big deal. But when it becomes a weekly habit as opposed to a daily habit, that starts to get concerning. She suggested, keeping your hair neat and cared for, brushing it daily, washing it as needed, just to keep neat and tidy. Taking care of the feet. Can't tell you how many feet I've seen in the older population that, whether it's because they have difficulty washing their feet or they just don't care anymore, they become more calloused and dry. And that leads to other issues, cracking of the feet, develop sores, infections. So you can see how simple self-care leads to health care. She suggested continuing to use cream for your face and your body, keeping your nails well groomed, wearing clothes that are comfortable but nice. Right? We don't have to be in our pajamas all day or just wearing a muumuu type thing. Because how does that make you feel? I know when I take a pajama day, yeah, I'm comfortable. It's a lazy day, but I can't say that I feel good about myself. Not like I do when I actually get dressed as if I'm going to see people, wearing a dress or even just nice slacks and a blouse, whatever that may be. But it does make a difference in how I feel about myself when I wear different clothing. And the one message that really stood out with what she said was, even when you're at home, even when you're alone, dress well for yourself, not just for other people. So even if you're not going to see anybody, try dressing up for the day. If you're a woman, what if you put on a little makeup, fixed your hair? How does that make you feel? Doesn't that kind of change maybe your outlook? You look at yourself in the mirror maybe when you go to wash your hands and you see yourself a little more perked up. And I think that changes how we feel about ourselves. That perspective changes everything. My grandmother also believed strongly the connection between how you feel and your health. If you wear something you like, you feel happy. And being happy affects your health. Imagine if you're sad, it tends to bring everything down, and our immune system actually doesn't work as well when we're in a more depressed state. But when we're in a happy state, our bodies actually do better. And she took it a step further, saying if you are happy, you have positive energy and you attract those people who also have positive energy. And then you have this beautiful cycle because you're working off each other with this positive energy. Whereas the opposite is also true. I find that when I'm around people who are maybe a little more negative, it kind of brings me down. It takes me so much more energy to stay positive that I start to feel myself sink down. So keeping that positive energy, being around people who are also positive, just helps everything, or helps our mental state as well as our health, our general body state. So when my mother shared this with me of what my grandmother had said, I could see how true it was, not just in what she was saying, but in how I saw my grandmother live her life and how I'm currently seeing my mother live her life. My mother doesn't hang around in her apartment in pajamas. You walk in on any given day and she is dressed to go out. I mean, it could be a pretty fancy dress. She dresses up to go to the grocery store. People often will stop her and comment on what she's wearing and just give her smiles because honestly, her clothing is a little bit out there. She does turn heads, I guess you could say. But that makes her feel good. And it makes people around her feel good. Her friends are always very happy to see her because my mother exudes joy. And so that makes the people around her more joyful. There are other little things as well, right, that my grandmother gave advice on. She said, wear comfortable shoes, but make them nice. I don't necessarily want you going around wearing high heels, but you don't need to be wearing slippers. And honestly, the slippers are dangerous. So make sure it's a good shoe. It supports you well, but they don't have to be ugly. They don't have to be Crocs, right? They're actually sometimes not so safe either. So, I want you to think safety. I want you to think comfort. But I also want you to think about feeling good, wearing things that make you happy. As long as it all comes back to maintaining your independence, safety, and happiness. So, one of the great things about this whole message that my mother shared with me is that she shared it. My grandmother didn't keep it to herself. She shared that knowledge with my mother. And now my mother has shared it with me and my sister. And I thought that the message was so important that I wanted to also share it with all of you, because it's a reminder that aging well isn't about luck. We have to be intentional. We make these choices every day. What are you going to wear today? Are you going to take a shower? Are you going to brush your hair? Are you going to doll yourself up? How are we going to carry ourselves? Who are we going to be around? Who are we going to hang out with? The negative Nancys or the positive Peggys? So today, tomorrow, depending what time of day you are listening to this, I want you to take a moment for yourself. Think about wearing something that makes you feel good. Might I dare say, makes you feel a little sexy? Why not? Take care of your body. Move, even just a little. If you like to dance, do a little dance, if that makes you feel good. Do something that brings you joy, because those small things matter more than you might realize, because those little things help you feel good. And when you feel good, that dopamine in your body increases. And then that positivity just spreads. And then that gives you that energy to keep going and do other things that bring you joy. So I don't want you to think about this message, that my grandmother passed to me. They're not meant to be rules. They're just meant to be advice, reminders about living your best life. It doesn't matter how old you are. You still have a say in how you live. Even if you live in an assisted living, you require help from other people, you still get a say. Maybe make that special request of, no, I want to wear that nice blouse today. I don't want to stay in these pajamas. Maybe you want to put on a little lipstick. Whatever the case may be, you decide how you show up, which then will help decide how you feel. And that effort, the kind that comes from caring about yourself, that's where your true beauty lies. It's not about the makeup. It's about the effort that you put into yourself, caring for yourself to make yourself happy. So I'm hoping that this resonated in some way and gives you just that little bit of something to think about to get yourself up and moving. I am here to support you. I am here to guide you because I want you to live your best life, as long as that is, or as short as that is. I want you to be confident in your own bodies. I want you to feel steady on your feet. But even if you're not steady on your feet, feel good about yourself. So I am here to help. if there's anything that I can do to help you in that journey, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always happy to talk about you living your best life. Here's to your independence.
Thanks for joining us today. If this episode helped you learn something new, we hope you'll share it with someone who could benefit as well. Until next time, keep moving, stay strong, and take care of your body.